This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. It's tax season, and we're all a bit tired of numbers. But here's one you need to hear. $16.5 billion. That's how much the IRS flagged for possible identity fraud last year. Now here's a good number. 100 million. That's how many data points LifeLock monitors every second. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it. Guaranteed. Save up to 40% your first year at LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Hello, this is Simon Brew. I'm the editor of Film Stories magazine, and a very warm welcome to the Film Stories podcast.
Come with me.
And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
And movies that had stories.
That the story just sucks them in.
This is just the beginning.
Stories. We would be honored if you would join us.
Hello and a very warm welcome to Film Stories with Simon Brew. I am Simon Brew. It's all you need to know about me. Aim of the podcast, well, I'm here to talk of the stories of films. And I tend to talk production stories, development stories, behind the scenes, bits and bobs, things that go to make the films that we know and love. Just that, the films that we know and love. What you've stumbled across here, and you're very, very welcome, thank you for joining me, is one of my occasional special episodes where I'm lucky enough to be joined by a guest who is talking about one of their upcoming films, or in this case, a kind of broader conversation, as much because I want to be spoiler light as anything else, about film production, about current Hollywood, about a slate of movies. And so I'm joined by producer Jason Blum, who has, through his Blumhouse Productions, backed a variety of projects, low budget projects with high amounts of filmmaker control stuff, films like Get Out, Split, Whiplash, the Purge movies, the recent new Halloween, and for the purposes of this conversation, the new take on The Invisible Man, written and directed by Leigh Whannell, who previously made the excellent Upgrade as well, which we're going to be talking about throughout this conversation. Simple enough format. I'm going to play you a clip from The Invisible Man. It's nice and spoiler free. I do think the film is terrific, and I do go quite light on that because I don't think it should be spoiled. The film is actually in cinemas on the 28th of February. I'll play you a clip, and then the other side of that, it's straight into my conversation with Jason Blum. I hope you enjoy it.
I'm scared.
You don't have to be scared of him anymore.
He was a sociopath, completely in control of everything. He said that wherever I went, he would find me, walk right up to me, and I wouldn't be able to see him.
So that was a clip from The Invisible Man, and I'm delighted to be joined by the Emperor of Blumhouse, the producer of the film, as far as I know, the owner of the film. The negatives are all in your cellar, Mr. Jason Blum.
Well, my pleasure. How are you? Pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. The Emperor of Blumhouse. Here I am in the flesh.
Is that what your business card says?
Yeah, that's what I know, but it's going to say that after this interview.
Is that right? Because I've got felt tip pens. So
wonderful.
I could knock all that off.
This is great news. I haven't had a business card since 2003, but
what
maybe it's time.
2003.
It's when I got rid of my business cards.
Okay, but there wasn't like. I mean, is this one of the? Are we doing one of these self-help seminars?
Maybe.
Is that one of the things?
Maybe. Could be.
I have, at the point this has been recorded, I am 22 minutes out of seeing the film. So, can I ask, when this came to you, and there's two parts to it really, what was it and what wasn't it when it was presented to you?
It's a great question. What it was I thought a very timely, original take on The Invisible Man, and I loved Leigh's, the way he was going to enter into the story, and the premise of the story was great. What it wasn't was a big, kind of bloated special effects tentpole movie, which I'm not interested in making, and usually not really a fan of watching those movies either.
Okay, so because one thing struck me while watching it, I've written fairly recently about something called Sherry movies, I don't know if you're familiar with that term.
I don't know. What does that mean?
It was in the mid 90s, early 2000, when Sherry Lansing was heading
that's
up.
what I thought you meant.
Was heading up Paramount Pictures.
Right,
she was pioneering, while no one else was making them, kind of mid-budget thrillers.
Basic Instinct.
Fatal Attraction was the first. But
Fatal Attraction.
The Double Jeopardies, the Kiss the Girls.
Thrillers.
She was making revenge thrillers with female protagonists. At a point, nobody was making those films. And it struck me, without going very spoilery into this film, one of the many things that this film does. I should say I like it.
Good.
Yeah,
good.
But I
little,
did say
little
that.
Reserved.
Well, no, I did say that before.
In England, that's a rave, but it's still a little
England,
reserved.
I'm basically stripping naked and running down Oxford Street, telling everyone to watch it.
Yeah,
but
right, exactly. That's a rave.
But what it struck me is you've got this model now, and it built up of horror, obviously, but you've kind of built this almost Trojan horse. That people have this perception of what one of your films is going to be.
And then it's
There's
something
a
else.
box out that comes, a box set that's like all the sinister artwork and stuff like that.
Right.
But you've made the films a film here that was prevalent in the 90s to a degree that we just can't get anywhere anymore. No one had been able to make one, and you've made one. And I'm kind of wondering if you can talk to that a little bit, because there's lots of things going on in this film.
Well, I do. One of the reasons I kind of love horror is it's a way to be subversive and reach a large group of people, and you can kind of use horror to do very different things. And Invisible Man is definitely a throwback to a Sherry movie for sure. I thought that's who you were talking to when you said that, but then you can't mean Sherry Lansing, but you did. It is like that. It's an updated version of a 90s thriller, and I think it is much more of a thriller than a horror movie. I think it's also it was Lee's idea to make The Invisible Man a movie that starred a woman, and make The Invisible Man a bad guy who torments her. And I think that premise is so great, because there's no better use of being invisible than to gaslight someone.
Yeah, and last time we saw a high budget Invisible Man movie, it was a Chevy Chase, wasn't it? It was a comedy.
Was that the last one?
I think so.
What was that?
Oh no, Hollow Man.
And that
was a bit pervy, wasn't it? So it kind of went a bit pervy, and then a bit comedy. And you kind of avoided both of those.
We avoided those. Yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
I don't often read press notes as a rule, but I read the press notes for this. And
I think that's wise, by the way.
No, but
I almost never read press notes, even though I'm quoted in them sometimes.
Well, you should actually, because there's a
what did I say?
No, it's not what you said. It's what they said.
Oh, God.
And it's from the studio. It says, quote, Universal monster films will be rooted in the horror genre with no restrictions on budget, rating, or genre. Is that what they said to you? Because if someone said to me there's no restrictions on budget, I've got Pizza Hut on the phone first thing.
But that's my thing. I don't like it.
I get that.
Have all the money in the world, I don't want to do big budget movies. Is that what you're?
No.
What are you saying?
My curiosity here was if Universal, in this instance, afforded you the opportunity to do that, and you pulled back and went completely the other way deliberately, that there was an opportunity on a studio budget to have a much broader, bigger canvas, if you like, and you said no. Because in your early career...
we have to stop right here immediately at this interview, because what you've said is preposterous, and let me tell you why.
I get that a lot.
You've implied that we make movies for a low budget because that's all that we can get. I mean, what you're saying is, if Invisible Man, if Universal had said, here's $50 million or $100 million from Invisible Man, why wouldn't you take it? But the reason that you've brought me to a standstill in our interview here is that I have to say that I've had enough success that if I chose to make expensive movies, even if it wasn't The Invisible Man, I could do that.
Yes.
But I don't, because I think money, in most instances, is the enemy of creativity as it comes to movies and television shows. Movies maybe more than TV shows, but actually both of them. I think now there are big exceptions to that rule. Julie Taymor is an actress, is a director who who
Should you do that Anthony Hopkins?
I'm not interested in seeing a low budget Julie Taymor anything.
Yeah.
Julie Taymor is someone you give an enormous amount of resources to, and what she comes up with is brilliant.
Yeah.
There are a few people like that. David Fincher is brilliant, but most people, I think that if you drop too much money on their doorstep to make a movie, and this is the movies suffer because of that. Now, I am not Julie Taymor or David Fincher. I'm not a genius, although I work with geniuses. But I think that their movies are much better because we resist the temptation to throw all that money at our directors, and we force them to work inside a box. Was that a longer answer to a question that you didn't really mean to, you poked a bear on that one?
No, I sort of half deliberately did it because it contrasts with something you've said to me before.
Tell me.
Whereas, because I interviewed you earlier in your career,
right,
and you said we're making the films we can because these are the resources available to us. And this was much
for a long time
that
ago.
That was much.
Yeah.
But I follow the films that you're making, and I've seen the screen size of the canvas grow, even as the bill doesn't necessarily.
Yeah.
But my point really was that those brackets feel like they've been long removed from you.
Which brackets?
The brackets that you were by. I mean, when you.
Oh no! Yeah, we could make movies. You're right. I mean, maybe early on. Now, I when I look back, maybe I make myself sound more clever than I actually was. Maybe we did it out of design. I feel like though, pretty early on, by the time we were doing. When our first deal at Universal, which was 10 years ago, was really geared only to do low-budget movies. I always like to do low-budget movies because maybe this is what I was talking about before. It affords us the opportunity to do whatever we want.
Yes.
And that's still true. If you the $100 million version of The Invisible Man, of Lee Whannell's Invisible Man, the movie that you just saw now 27 minutes ago.
Yes.
Would be nothing like the movie that you just saw. First of all, there'd be all different actors in it. The third act would be a massive set piece.
It would be half an hour longer.
It would be a half an hour longer. Yeah, and I personally think it wouldn't be as good, it wouldn't be as interesting to me.
Yeah,
and so low budgets afford us the opportunity to give the directors creative control and encourage them to take risks.
Yeah. With this particular, I mean, first of all, if I was spending the budget, I'd have bought the house. That bit at the start. That was a house.
Yeah, that's a great. I felt the same way. I felt the same way.
But
I
also,
love that house.
But also, whilst and I've been guilty of it myself. A lot of the conversations with you really do love that house. Now you're just going off on a moment on that house.
I'm laughing because. I had the same thought when I saw them. I didn't see the house before I saw the movie. When I saw the movie, I thought, God, I'd really love to have that house. And second of all, I think that would be a great use of capital. Yes. If you give me $50 million, I'll spend 40 on the house. I'll make the movie for 10. Now that figures right up my alley.
Honestly, you should have hired me earlier on it. But many of the conversations, and I've been guilty of that just now.
Yes,
deliberately so. With you as a producer, tend to centre on money. That people, I assume, ask you the budget question an awful lot. But the other side of that, I wonder, is how much of a protective shield are you to your filmmakers? Because again, one of the things you talked about early in this incredible run of successes was I get to say we can make our films in Los Angeles, so my cast and crew can go home and see their kids at night and things like that.
Those days are long gone, by the way.
Is that right?
Yeah, I remember that.
So things have changed.
Yeah, things have changed. Things have changed, yeah.
But what kind of protective force are you? So Lee Whannell comes in with a vision for how he wants to do that. Where does your creative input start and stop? What kind of buffer are you between the studio? What level of trust is in there?
Well, you got a bunch of questions in there, which I will unpack one at a time. There is no other creative voice in the conversation at all. On any of our movies, so we're more than a buffer. We are it. That's the filmmaker when they agree to make a movie for they don't get to pay themselves anything up front except for scale. Yeah. And when they agree to make a movie with a limited budget, the bargain or what they get in return for that is final cut and no meddling by people who can control what they do.
Yeah.
But to answer kind of the second part of your question, the result of telling the director that they get to do what he or she wants to do is that we are much, much, much more creatively involved with our movies. Television is kind of a different conversation than the one that we're having with our movies than ordinary producers or even a studio, because as soon as the director knows they don't have to fight for what they want, the conversation is very fluid. I mean, we go back and forth with everything, with casting, with the script, with the scares, with the changes, with the cut. Like, it's very, the conversations are endless. And the director has no fears about bringing up what they may be worried about bringing up if they didn't know that they have final say.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, so you remove the fear from...
You remove the fear, and the director's not worried about saying, like, should it be this person or that person, because they don't think what I say or what we say they're going to have to do. Yeah. So there's no, like, the director kind of going and being secretive about what they're doing or hoping they're going to get something by us, because they don't have to act like that, because anything they want they're going to get. And the result is that they bring up a lot more, and we just have many, many, many more kind of open, I think conversations that are more productive creative conversations than you would have otherwise.
When you were making the Paranormal Activity films, as you were coming to the end of that particular run of them, you described a kind of mini brain trust that you had, that there was a bunch of creative people who were working and kind of overseeing those movies. Was that exclusive to that franchise? Or
the way that we made Paranormal Activity is, I always say that there were kind of two experiences that I had that led to the way that we make our movies. One was the way the Paranormal Activity sequels were made, not the first movie, but the sequels. And the second was my experience on the Tooth Fairy. And those two experiences were my experience in studio production, studio filmmaking, decision by committee, directors not having any creative control. Yeah. And our business operates completely opposite from those two experiences. Now, the interesting thing about the TV and movie business is that there's no recipe for success, right? There are a lot of those. I think Paranormal Activity 3 is maybe the best of all the Paranormal Activity movies. It came out of that. It's just that process is not for me.
Is that the Xbox one? Is it 3 or 4?
What's the Xbox one?
Where you use an Xbox Connect. And they've got all the infrared dots all over the house. It's your film.
That was 4.
Yeah.
That was a great scene.
I call it
Paranormal
Xbox.
That's great.
So it would have got you a trademark infringement.
Paranormal Activity 3 was the one with the broomstick holding the water.
Yeah. I like the Xbox one.
You like 4. All right. Well, you're in a minority. You're an anarchist.
So you don't like 4, but I do.
Yeah, exactly. 4 was exactly. You're right about that.
When you see this film, then when Lee went out, because I thought Upgrade was terrific. I mean, we really went for that in our magazine quite a lot.
Oh, did you? I loved it.
And to the point where it's almost been rescued on physical release over here, which is incredible.
I have more plans for Upgrade. I'm not done with Upgrade yet. I'm not telling you what they are. No. But I have just had plans. That's all I'm saying right now. I have more plans. I'm not finished with Upgrade.
You're not finished with Upgrade. So I take that as trilogy, spin-off TV series, and stage musical.
I don't know. You could take any of the above.
When you see this the first cut of The Invisible Man, I have to acknowledge the powerhouse performance at the start of it, and the reason I was asking in part about the protecting of your director is so much space is afforded for quietness and for someone looking at a camera. The camera to be still without building up to a jump or anything like that. The sheer patience and diligence of the build-up of her character, I thought was astounding. And Elizabeth Mott is just, it struck me coming out. She's both the antagonist, the protagonist. She's doing all of these roles that she shouldn't necessarily have to do. Mm-hmm. When you see that, can you tell me your reaction to seeing a first cut, appreciating the whole thing hasn't come as a surprise to you, and what the process is from there for you?
Yeah, well, it's always every time you see a first cut on every movie, it's always different. You always have high hopes. Yeah. Because right before you've seen the first cut, you've got the dream of the movie, which the movie's perfect. When you read the script, when you greenlight the movie, you have to imagine the movie's going to be perfect. Usually it's a little disappointing seeing the first cut. Seeing the first cut of, you know what I will say? Every time of the three Lee has directed 3 movies. We produced all 3 of them, and every first cut of all 3 of his movies has been the opposite. Like, he really over-delivers as a director. I feel like he's underappreciated as a director, and that will change as soon as people see Invisible Man. When you do a sequel, it's harder for people to distinguish the directing, and that happened on Insidious for Lee. And Upgrade, like you say, didn't get wide distribution, so a lot of people, whoever saw Upgrade, loved it. Unfortunately, not that many people saw it. But I think now he's going to have an original movie, and it's going to get wide distribution. So I think people are going to catch up to my thinking, where my thinking was on Lee after the first movie he directed, after we saw that. But I was, I gave Lee a hug after the test screening. I mean, not the test screening, after the first time I saw it. And we did a little tweaking with the movie. We did like a half a day of additional photography on the movie. Okay. And it was all because Lee was trying to make it even better. But I remember saying, see if you can make it 8 minutes shorter, and we've got a movie. And I think he made it 7 minutes shorter and added a little bit, and it got even better than it was. But I was very happy when I first saw the movie.
So 1 minute in, 7 minute out kind of thing, just to...
What do you mean 1 minute in?
No, I'm just curious that you lengthened it and shortened it at the same time.
No. I said take out 7. I think you took out... I said take out 8. I think you took out 7. Meaning we were on the same page about it. That's all. Yeah.
I did write down halfway through screening, I wish he'd made Flight Plan. The ambiguity could have just been ramped through the roof.
Maybe he'll remake Flight Plan.
Well, there you go. There you go. You talked. I'm not dwelling on the specific of it because I respect what you want to say and what you don't want to say. But you talked Upgrade there. I deliberately do podcasts of this so people can't. If people are going to go off and make clickbait out of my stuff, good. They have to do some work on it. Of course. But I did know because I just did a search for you coming into this chat because I mean the media ecosystem I find fascinating. Right. Around film at the moment, and according to this, I've learned from the headlines just that have gone up.
Tell me.
That Halloween Kills is going to be a very big film with a very big canvas. The Hunt's delay was a decision made by between all concerned. You sent an email to Scott Derrickson. I know how you keep in shape now. You bought a house recently. Technology's changed and has changed Hollywood. Whiplash didn't make money at the cinema, and the Tooth Fairy reboot is top of your list of dream projects. But how do you... I made the last one up. I just say it right.
Thank God. Just see if I was listening.
Okay. How do you feel about that ecosystem? Because in the early days of your movies, it was a lot of people fighting your corner and pushing, and certainly Paranormal Activity. The word of mouth was gigantic and really helpful. But now, one of my concerns, and I appreciate it, I'm pulling the trapdoor on myself a little bit, is whether the media ecosystem around film is actually healthy for film. If that's encouraging filmmakers, if there's kind of a punch down culture to it, or if anything you say, it can go off and be... You can say, you sent a 3-word email and that's become headlines around the world or something like that. I'm just curious what it's like being the human being in the midst of all of that. I'm not asking you to talk to any of those stories. I just wonder what the human's like.
I don't spend a lot of time thinking about it because it is what it is. You know what I mean? And we're in a we've chosen a business. I've chosen a business. It's a kind of business that people are focused on and people love to talk about and say good things and bad things, and it's part of what it is. I think I always say this. I always, not always, but I sometimes have this conversation with talent in terms of doing press or doing publicity for the work that you did. Like, you have to look, that's part of your job, is not just creating art, but when you're doing it in this public way with other people's money, you can write a book, and if you don't want to publicize it, then as long if you haven't taken a big advance and you've said that, then that's okay. But if you're kind of part of this machine, that's kind of part of it. So I don't. Part of me kind of, I think it's interesting and funny. I kind of get a kick out of it, actually, is the answer to your question.
Okay. I mean, your house did look very nice, to be fair. There was a picture associated.
Was there a picture of my house? Yeah, I don't even know if it was my house. Some of them you can't. It is inside. It is my house?
No, it's not inside your house. Don't worry. We've not actually turned your own film on you.
You might have. I mean,
that would be amazing. Wouldn't that be
I learn things about every day from social media.
What I've subtly done here is I've pitched you the plot of
a movie.
Future films.
Look at this. It's going to finance the magazine. Here we
That
go.
would be amazing. So we're in the middle of a conversation. I'm actually telling you that I'm spying on you.
I believe every word of it.
That's awesome. One of the things I try and do with the outlets that I've got is to encourage people that film is reachable. And one of the things I just wanted to touch on with you is you did have a period where it wasn't working for you. Where I think not working, but you had about a 10-year period before you.
Oh,
found
before
the level
Paranormal
of
Activity.
success.
Yeah. No. It was. I looked puzzled because I definitely.
I
did.
thought I'd still offended you from 20 minutes ago.
No, I'm over that, and you haven't offended me. Yeah, you'll never offend me. I'm unoffendable.
I'm not trying.
I'm unoffendable. Now, I had a very it was a very tough period. Yes. What is your question about that period?
Well, my question is that I think for people trying to get, because what's interesting about your story is people assume it's been this mass rush of success,
No,
but actually
it wasn't.
you battled through failure and you bounced back through failure to get to that.
I can't tell if you're being facetious, but
no, I'm not being
true.
facetious.
Okay,
I'm not being facetious.
Okay, it's true. Okay, it's true.
And I just wonder if you can talk to that a little bit, because for those on the other side trying to break in, they're coming up against a lot of failure before they can get any kind of success. And I just wonder if you can talk to what the engine room was.
I do. It was from 2000 to about 2000 till Paranormal Activity. So 2000 to 2007, I had a very fancy job as an executive. I came to London all the time and met all the people, all the directors here, and I was going to all these film festivals. And then I quit that job and I started, producing for myself. I had a company called Blum Israel for 2 years that failed. We made Hysterical Blindness and one other movie, and whatever, the company blew up. And I guess if you're I was going to say every business is different, but I guess it's in a way it's not that different. You just keep going and keep trying, and I've definitely got lucky, but also you get lucky because you're taking a lot of shots.
Yeah.
And even when my company was just me, people would say, "Boy, you're doing a lot. Like you're making a lot of movies." We were making 1.5 movie, 3 movies every 2 years. During that period,
you made 3 movies this month.
I made 3 movies last week now, but I got 100 people at the company. So when it was just me, I was still like, you got to keep trying, and if you love what you're doing, keep pushing. But it kind of romanticizes it. There were times during that period, one time very particularly I remember, where I did think I was going to stop. I was going to do something else. I was going to get a job for someone and not have my own company. So I don't want to sound like I'm complaining about it because I'm very lucky now. But at the time, it was definitely, I struggled. It was hard.
I saw a short film from a filmmaker yesterday, Louisa Connolly Burnham's her name is. I was curious. I thought, and I'm not related. I'm not trying to sell the film to you, but I'm curious. How does someone making a short film in the UK come to your attention?
Well, we make on the TV side, we've made 26 movies we've made 20 of 26 movies for Hulu. We have this show called Into the Dark. Yeah. So if someone in our television team saw that short and liked that short, and that director had an idea for a movie about a holiday, we'd probably hire that director. So we're looking especially in our TV business for new talent all the time. And like I said, we've employed 20 directors in the last 18 months, most of whom had never made a movie before.
Interesting. Obviously, I introduced a film for you once, and I was specifically told by the PR beforehand, don't mention Tooth Fairy in your
Is that true? That's so true. Embarrassing.
And so
now we have to talk about Tooth Fairy constantly.
I mentioned it.
Of course. Did you mention it? Of course. Good for you.
And then I just heard you killing yourself laughing in the wings. The only point I wanted to make of that is all the films you've made, I know I'm being chucked out of the room, but all the films you've made, it strikes me you've learned something from all of them, that we make a couple of gags about that,
definitely.
But that's as formative a film for you as this.
The Tooth Fairy, I think, was... The Tooth Fairy and Paranormal Activity were the two single most informative films I've ever produced in terms of informing the rest of my career, for sure.
Well, congratulations on the 906 films you've made.
Well, thank you very much.
And this one that
1,000
saw 48 minutes ago.
Oh, wonderful.
Well,
I'm
thank
glad
you
you
so
liked
much
it.
for your time.
Thank you.
And that was my chat with Jason Blum, which took place last week at the time this podcast being recorded, in advance of the release of The Invisible Man that's in cinemas on the 28th of February. There is a review of that over at the Film Stories website, www.filmstories.co.uk. You can find more from me at Simon Brew. You can follow Film Stories on Twitter if you want, at Film Stories Pod, hiding away on Facebook too, facebook.com/filmstoriesonline, and a whole host of exclusive video film stories that we put together. The wonderful Dan does those at youtube.com/film stories. And of course, if you go to the aforementioned website, you can find out all about our magazines that Jason Blum just hinted at in that interview just there. And of course, there's a huge backlog of Film Stories episodes waiting to be discovered. You can find those over at the website as well. If you do like this podcast, please do subscribe. Please do leave, ideally, a hugely positive review. I'll be back with the regular weekly Film Stories episode. They land every Monday morning. So I'm going to go off and work on that now. Thank you, as always, for listening to Film Stories, for supporting Film Stories. I hope you enjoy The Invisible Man. I hope you enjoy this podcast, and you all take care. Bye-bye.